All right, welcome everybody. Today is the 24th day of October, and this is our full council meeting for the Village of Manor. Will you please stand as you are able? Help me get the meeting started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Mr. Primoff, can you do a roll call, please?
Certainly. Ms. Cheney. Mr. Bishop.
Here.
Mr. Knapp. Here. Mr. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Van Horn. All members are present.
Thank you, everyone. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the agenda? Is there any amendments that we need to make to it, or do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, the first thing that I am going to do is ask for a motion to affirm Mr. Pridnoff as the clerk of council. That will enable us to officially do some of the proceedings here. This was on the recommendation of our legal counsel. Let's do this. Do I have a motion to affirm Mr. Pridnoff as the clerk of council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. I am in possession of of the letter of resignation of former Councilman Betcher. I will read that to everyone. It's to council. And the residents of Gulf Manor, please accept this letter of resignation from my elected position as council member for the Village of Gulf Manor, chair of the Finance Committee, and member of the Planning Commission, effective September 30th, at the close of business. Due to my move to a home outside the village, I am no longer eligible for service. It has been my honor and privilege to serve the people of Gulf Manor. I wish all the best to the village, the council, and administration. I appreciate your support and will continue to root for the village to fulfill its potential. In the future, Matt Betcher. So would like to recognize the distinguished service of Councilman Betcher, and we'll be looking forward to making a proclamation to have affirmed by the council recognizing to the village. I also have in my hand the successor designee certification from Mr. Betcher, which lists the designees that can name a replacement for him. And on that it says Sharon Cheney and Councilman Ashley Snyder. Have you guys agreed upon a replacement?
Yes, we have.
All right, who is that replacement?
Mr. Lou Marks.
All right, very good. I will ask you, Mr. Marks, to come forward and make a, I guess we need to make a motion to, or,
No, the two of them actually tell the clerk
right, okay,
that that's who they.
Okay.
very good. And Mr. Marks, I'll have you sworn into office, and there's a signature that I need to have you sign. A signature, I'm gonna need your signature. You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Lou Marks,
I, Lou Marks,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gulf Manor,
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gulf Manor,
and to fairly and faithfully perform the duties
to fairly and faithfully perform the duties
of the office to which I am appointed.
of the office to which I'm appointed.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Need your signature saying all that as well.
Sorry.
You just say just give it to him, send it to the record.
Mr. Marks, you're at your spot there.
I am. That's what it is.
And we have another appointment to make as well. Cameron Ammerman. I had the pleasure of getting to talk to him during the application process to be a officer here in the Village of Gulf Manor. I'll ask you to step forward as well. So Cameron grew up in New Richmond and graduated in 2001 from the Cincinnati Police Academy at UC. And from that point, began policing in his hometown and then took on a number of other assignments. And I'll read off that list here. Policing for Goshen Township, the village of Russellville, UC Hospital, the village of Batavia. His most recent assignment was with the village of Glendale, assisting in their schools and with their DARE program. So he has two children, Terry and Tyler, two teenage children, and he enjoys history books, I understand, and travel. So thank you very much. I've had the opportunity to interview him, and I'm very excited to have him joining our team here. And I know that the chief is as well with that. So if you would raise your right hand, please. I, Cameron, do solemnly swear to uphold the laws and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America
The laws of the Constitution of America
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio,
the charter and ordinances of the village of Gulf Manor,
the charter and ordinances of Gulf Manor,
and to fairly and faithfully
and to fairly and faithfully
perform the duties of the office
perform the duties of the office
to which you've been appointed. To which I've been.
to which I've been appointed.
Congratulations. Appreciate it. All right. Should I make announcements at this time about appointing Lou Marks to the Finance Committee?
Yes, so in the committee appointments you can do, the council needs to nominate and accept
Planning.
to the planning.
The Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Right. So charter gives me the privilege of appointing people to council committees and to name the chairs of those committees. And I have decided with the stepping down of Mr. Betcher to have Lou Marks step into the Finance Council and to move Ms. Cheney over from engagement to be the chair of the Finance Committee, to move Lee Snyder, who's been chair of communications with community engagement, up to chair of community engagement. And with the Planning Committee, the Planning Commission, rather, will need a motion from council. My understanding is that Mr. Marks is willing to fulfill that position on the Planning Commission, but that is the call of council. And should we be doing that tonight, or should we?
It would be appropriate.
And I have a question, because I'm currently on executive.
Correct, as a resident.
Right.
As a resident. So we're going to need to get a new resident for that position. So if you know of folks that would be a good candidate as a residential, to fill a residential seat on the executive committee, certainly bring that to my attention. I know that we have a same situation with April Norman needed to step down from her position on the Finance Committee. And so we are looking for a replacement for her as well. All right. So, and I've begun the process of talking to people about that, and I have a candidate for the Finance Committee, but please also bring your recommendations to me as well. And having that all said, we have two visitors today.
Need a motion on planning.
Need a motion on Planning Commission.
Make a motion.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your service, Lou. Appreciate it. All right. And so we have two visitors. The Village of Gulf Manor has reached out for some consulting assistance on creating a strategic plan for all those who are watching this on YouTube and wondering what this is all about. So Mr. Greg Dell and Miss Liz Bloom are helping us with this process. Mr. Dale with the strategic planning process, and he'll be speaking to that this evening. And Ms. Bloom to the part of the community engagement piece and us making sure that well, I'll let her speak to this. So these are the experts, and I would turn it over to Ms. Bloom at this time.
All right. I feel compelled to do a good job with all of the folks who are here, especially somebody who's come on your sick bed tonight. Thank you. So my name is Liz Bloom, and I work at the Community Building Institute at Xavier University. And I'm here tonight in my capacity as a team member with LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, and here because on behalf of Hamilton County Planning and Community Development. They reached out with the program several years ago. Golf Manor agreed to participate. And so what we're doing tonight is presenting a set of housing findings that I think will probably, I think you'll find them helpful as you work through the comprehensive plan recommendations and set those goals and those work items. Hopefully the housing piece will nestle in there and just help inform sort of some of your detailed next steps around a couple of the goals that I know you've set. So I wanted to make sure to say thank you to Hamilton County for their support on this. Talk to them, thank them. Oop, and I'm gonna, yeah. So the purpose of the work really was to analyze your current housing trends, to present some demographic information, and then the county's real interest in this work initially was to identify communities that wanted to collaborate with them on all sorts of funding. Initially, it was CDBG funding. It also now includes the ARPA funding and some of the Recovery Act money that's available. So I think these recommendations, as well as your plan, will position you well to do that kind of work with the county. I'm going to present a set of findings that included interviews, analysis around up-to-date 2020 census information, housing market information, and some field work that we've done. So I want to characterize, I want to tell you what people said about Golf Manor, and hopefully this is helpful as you think about implementing the strategic plan. People feel comfortable in this quiet, safe community. I heard you talking earlier about all of the drug activity that's going on, but generally what people say is this is a comfortable place for them, and they feel safe, and they feel it's quiet. People use the word quiet a lot. What that means, that's why people come and that's why they stay. It feels like a comfortable community. It also means they report there is sometimes little to do. And there are all kinds of comments through the findings about creating more civic space and more things to do. As part of that, though, you also benefit from the growth and the positive sort of commercial and retail activities going on in Pleasant Ridge and Oakley over the last 10 years. So, well, people don't find what they need exactly in Golf Manor, they find it close by, and that's positive. What we heard was that homeowners really need support with home improvements, and that's both code violations and home improvements. And I'm saying that in two ways, because it's one thing to make sure the roof doesn't leak and the windows don't leak. It's another thing to update your kitchen. And I'm making that distinction now because when I come back to it, there's often home improvement programs particularly focus on code violations, which is appropriate. You want your building to be watertight. But I think as communities grow and change and investments get made, we also want to be able to support people who are expanding the square footage of a house or updating a kitchen or updating a bathroom. All of that is part of keeping your housing stocks sound. And units are small in Golf Manor. Although you have a fair number of 3 and 4 bedroom homes, they are small. And one of the things that we heard from people is once the second kid is here, I'm having a hard time. And that's when people tend to move. Having said that, people see schools as a real asset in this community. They think there are good school choices. That's Pleasant Ridge Academy, it's Hebrew Day School, it's Nativity. Those all feel like good choices to people. You will talk about in a minute when Greg gets up, the notion of community space and community center. One of the ways that people talk about that lack now is that the village needs third spaces, they need coffee shops, they need restaurants, they need community centers. And the term third space is, it's not your home, it's not your job, but it's important places in community where people encounter each other. Where you run into your neighbor, where you can talk about what's going on in the village, where you get information. So that's an important, I think, part of what people identified as something they'd like to see in the village, and I know you're gonna talk about it later. Residents are, and maybe to expand on that, residents are looking for better ways to get connected, both in person and online. So I think what we're hearing from people is, this was a great quote, you have to know somebody who knows to know what's going on in the village. And you want everybody to know what's going on in the village. So I want to suggest to you that there is lots of investment going on in the village now. People are making renovations, people are making improvements, and they're doing it in some creative ways. So I think anything you can do to encourage that kind of investment is nothing but good. I'm going to turn our attention now to a set of demographics. When I was here, gosh, I don't think we knew when the 2020 numbers were going to be released, but we have them now. And so what I'm mostly going to talk about, and I have the data that you see here and a bigger document, and it's probably just as easy to have it in your hand and look at it and think about it. So I'm happy to make all that available. I think what I want to suggest to you is that there are 300 and, God, I can't see it, 3,000, thank you, 814 people in Gulf Manor as of the 2020 census. And what I would say is your population is stabilizing. You actually gained population between 2010 and 2020. You lost population between 20 and 2010. So I would call that stable at this point. Your Black population is slightly down. In 2010, it was 73%. To 2022, it's 62%. Your households have income slightly below Hamilton County, and the charts on the right demonstrate that as well. And there's something interesting going on here, and I feel like I want to unpack it a little bit. Poverty rates are decreasing in the village. You have a relatively low median income compared to Hamilton County, and there are people who are expressing financial distress, but there are fewer housing choice vouchers today than there were even in 2019, and we do see poverty going down. You see that in 2010, you were above the county rate. Today, you're below the county rate. The other thing that I just want to point out, about half of the families in Gulf Manor are families with children. Only half the families are household families, which is people are related to one another, but only 25% of the households in the village have children in them. I think we often have sort of a narrative in mind that suburban communities have households with children, and it's not the majority anymore. The largest growth sector in households is single people living alone. And that's true for you as well. Just, again, I think this demographic information, you know your village and you know who's here, but I think it's often helpful to just sort of double check with the narrative that we all believe about the place, because suburban communities are changing and their demographics are changing. And I think often it's helpful, particularly if you think about housing markets, to just have a better sense of what that looks like as you're going forward. Over half of your households are homeowners, and you have a higher proportion of Black homeowners than Hamilton County. 54% of Black households in the village are homeowners, and that's a higher proportion than in all of Hamilton County. Your homeownership rate declined slightly from 2000, but not significantly. Overall, Hamilton County's homeownership rate is 59%. So you're in the ballpark there, slightly less. Another thing I think that's worth pointing out, because I think also we have this notion in our head that people in suburban communities have been here forever, and not everybody has. Only 25% of the households in Gulf Manor have been here over 20 years. And well over half, 56% of households have moved within the last 10 years. So you have, there are new residents that, and that goes back to that comment about you have to know somebody who's in the know to know. Those are the folks who don't know what's going on, and you want to find ways to engage them in sort of the civic life of Gulf Manor. I'm going to talk a little bit about cost burden here because I think it's been a topic of conversation. It's certainly something that Hamilton County wants everybody to think about. When we talk about housing affordability, what that means to me is that people, households, everybody should manage their household budget so that they're not spending more than 30% of their income on their housing. That's sort of a HUD guideline that has been in place forever. I tell my 28-year-old kid not to spend more than 30% of his income on his rent. It's really an important piece of sort of what helps balance a household. And what we know is today, 35% of households in Gulf Manor are spending more than 30% of their income on their housing. It's most, and what you can see here, and I have to look up my page now so I can read the numbers. That 42% of cost burden households are renters, but 28% of your households are homeowners. And it has become increasingly expensive to be a renter, particularly for households who have had mortgages for a long time and are paying under $1,000, maybe even under $500 a month for their mortgage payment. It's very hard to find an apartment for that kind of monthly rent. So it's not unexpected that renters are more likely to be cost burden than homeowners. I will tell you that of your homeowners, it's 28% of cost burden homeowners are probably the homeowners who are having a hard time maintaining their housing. They're having a hard time coming up with the money for a roof or to put the concrete stairs back together. I mean, those are the households that you really want to be thinking about in terms of how you support them to do the maintenance. Overall in Hamilton County, you can see that the cost burden percent is a little bit high in Gulf Manor. It's about 30% in Hamilton County overall. And the second chart here demonstrates to you that households that are severely cost burdened means they are spending more than 50% of their income on their housing. And what you've got to imagine then is it's hard to do all the other things you need to do. It's hard to get school supplies, to get healthcare, to pay for rising gas prices, all of the rest of the stuff we have to do. You have 297 households that are spending more than 50% of their income on their housing. The majority of them are renters. A much smaller percentage of them are homeowners. And you're a bit higher than Hamilton County, but not wildly higher than Hamilton County. I just want to go over a little bit of information on your housing stock. You have 1,714 housing units in the village. You had a small loss from 2010. You lost 126 units. You have a current vacancy rate of about 11%, which is not horrendous. Yeah.
How is that possible without physically losing a house?
Well, if you may have physically lost houses, there may be doubles that became singles. There may be, you're physically, if units were vacant and not habitable, I mean, you know better than I do what happened, but
That's why I'm confused.
Census shows that you lost 126 units between 2010 and 2020.
Yeah, I'm just trying to account for it because I don't
see
see that.
If they don't get an answer from a house for the census, do they count it as a lost house?
Not necessarily. So lost units are units gone. Vacant units are units that are here, but no one is in. And so what happens, vacant units are physically still here, but they're not occupied. Units that are gone, the census was
So I
reporting.
think some of that might be attributable to buildings that were raised in the Stover cul-de-sac. Those are all housing units in
That's right.
multiple
It's about five
unit buildings, in addition to a number of single or double family residences that are combined into one. That's happened a lot on Vera Avenue.
So if they're 4-unit buildings, but one building got torn down with 4 units in it, it counts as 4 units. So
Yeah,
And Stover.
yeah.
126 unit loss since 2010 when you only have 1,700 is a loss, right? Again, the vacancy rate at 11.4% is relatively consistent with other communities before the foreclosure crisis, vacancy rates above 5% felt really high to me, but this is very consistent with lots of other communities at this point. Your owner occupied housing has a much lower vacancy rate, 2.9%. You have the majority of your housing in the village is single family housing, over half. However, you have a significant proportion of 2, 3, and 4 family units compared to Hamilton County. That's a higher proportion. And those are great affordable housing units. Those are probably rental housing units. I will tell you in 2021, you have 334 voucher holders, about 21% of your households, which is down relatively significantly from only 2019. 2019, you had 553 voucher holders. Today, you're down to 334.
What
Could-
vouchers are we talking about?
I'm sorry?
What vouchers, just a HUD?
So I'm sorry, HUD Housing Choice Vouchers, that's right, it's been called the Section 8 program. What it means is that a resident, a renter, gets qualified and gets a voucher, and they go onto the private market and take any property that a landlord will accept their voucher for. So the unit is not subsidized,
For
the
Liz.
resident
Yeah.
is subsidized. And you have no affordable housing units in the village that are unit subsidized vouchers. So the difference between a housing choice voucher is that the voucher is with the individual, the household, and a subsidized unit, the subsidy is on the unit. You have no units that are subsidized, but you have 334 households who have vouchers, which is, as I said, down from 2019. So I'm sorry, I feel like I'm taking a while, so I want to just give you a summary real quickly, what I think I'm seeing as I look at the numbers and I think about what we heard from people. This feels like a very diverse, stable community. You have some movement in your numbers, but in some cases they're going up, in some cases they're going down. I think that this provides a real opportunity for Black homeowners, provides a great opportunity for first-time home buyers, and I think it provides a really great opportunity for renters who want to live in a quiet community. So I think that feels like the kind of the people that we're seeing, the demographics and the things that we're hearing about. I think that thinking about how you support property maintenance and upgrades with homeowners is something we're thinking about. The county, Hamilton County, is going to launch a countywide program that will be funded from the county. And I think it makes some sense for you to think about taking advantage of that. The role of the local jurisdiction is largely going to be around identifying property owners who you think are appropriate recipients and helping them sort of get through the system. In other words, creating local pipelines of households who would benefit from the program. Again, this notion of in-person and online communication support and support for the creation of a third place, which I think Greg is going to talk about as a community center. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to
Do you
Greg.
want to take questions
Yeah, I
first?
mean,
or
however you want.
How do you want to proceed? Should we pause for questions or put it all out there?
How are you guys?
Out there.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have demographics and I have more information. that
Yeah,
I'm happy
if you
to share.
can forward that to the
Yeah.
council members
Yeah.
and myself, I would appreciate the large document as well
Yeah.
on the data, but the slides as well that you used. Thank you.
That's great information, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name's Greg Dale. I'm with McBride Dale Clarion. With me, Sophia Ferry-Grove, who you may recall was a co-op student with us. She's no longer a co-op student with us because she's back in school, but she wanted to stay involved, so she'll continue to help with this and what we hope will be the pulling together of this in the pretty near future. So I've got a couple of things to talk about here, and one of which can end up being the question of how we integrate what Liz is talking about into the strategic planning process. But let me just start with this overview. So you may recall, I know this has been happening in dribs and drabs over about the past year. So just to catch you up, what we're really trying to get at here is essentially a series of long-range aspirational goals or vision. By trying to organize those around the priorities. So I have a handout here that I'd like to start around that I'll be working off of. So I'm going to try to try to tie this all together because frankly, at this point, it's kind of an evolving process in terms of coordinating with the administrator and the mayor. There's some things that are already in the works to kind of move beyond this stage. So let's see if we can make sense out of this. And Ron and the mayor, if you can kind of jump in and help talk about how you want to proceed this going forward. So you may recall the exercise we did in this room about a year ago, actually, where
October 6th.
I know. I looked at that. I couldn't believe it. Where you all did an exercise, we identified priority issues. We went through an exercise. We came back and we reported on that. So what you see in here as the headings: prosperity, sustainability in the future, and the goal. And then you see like village center and the goal. That you have seen that before. Some of these taglines have changed a little bit. We're just trying to make it a little more enticing. But those are basically what you've seen before. So so this is basically those goal categories and the heading. So you've seen that structure before. So then the idea is to essentially populate those goals with the actions. And what you have in front of you are a first draft set of actions that were really the product of Ron and Sophia and I working together to try to get some ideas down and clean them up at the starting point. Mayor, I know you've already got some thoughts to move beyond that into the next level of thinking, including tinkering a little bit with these headings and how we characterize this. And Mayor, I'll let you speak for yourself, but one of the things you pointed out, which was kind of looking back on it, a miss on our part, is just the whole thing doesn't feel people-oriented enough, right? It feels a little too much geeky government kind of speak. I think maybe you didn't use those words, but that I think a good way to think about it. So there's maybe a way to kind of personalize this, make it a little bit more people-oriented. We can talk about all those things. I think what's really important that I want to talk about is not what the details of this are, because ultimately this is going to be for you all to decide. We've given you some things to think about. I think it needs to start taking on your imprint, your headings, your language, your actions. What I think I'd like to talk about here is how you use this, because I think this is really what is the important thing to think about. What you see on the screen is on the back of this handout that you have here as well. So let me just walk you through this idea here, and that is to have these goals and these actions as to act as kind of a community agenda. But obviously, even if you scan through these, this is more than you can accomplish in a year, right? This is more than you can accomplish in any finite period of time. So what we need is a system. So we have in mind, and we've worked with another community to try to put this together, it's kind of a structured system of identifying and tracking annual progress in achieving those goals and those actions, kind of a spreadsheet-based system. And Sophia, do you have that?
We have Ron. So Ron developed, and we have copies to pass around to everybody. It's really fantastic. So it's a way that once we agree on what those action points are, we can actually track the measurable progress. So when we're gathering annually, we can look at where we've made progress, but then also what the administration can do is can cut and paste some of those right out of there and put it into like job goals, all right, for different departments and everything, and help him in evaluating different departments on how we're moving along with these goals. So we can probably just pass that around right now so you get a sense of what that looks like. Mm-hmm.
I love hearing the mayor preach this stuff, right? Because what we're really talking about is an annual system where every year, and the timing's perfect to move right into 2023 with this as your first year, starting with administration, working with the mayor and council to identify what the priorities are for this upcoming year. So of our list of actions, potential actions on our agenda, what can we hope to achieve this year? Put those out there. Spreadsheet creates accountability for it. Then Ron works, as administrator, works with the departments to develop department work programs, taking into account that the departments do other things other than achieve a strategic plan, but within the framework of within the capacity of the departments, is how are the departments going to move forward with achieving those work program tasks? You could have your own work program. You could say on our council agenda for the next year, we're going to do A, B, C, and D in addition to the stuff we're already doing, right? So you can identify what those are, build them into department work programs. Ideally, you create some sort of measurable or objective identifiable benchmarks. So it's not just out there, how do we know if you accomplish it? But there is some sense of this is your work program and the expectation in consultant speak, your deliverable, right? Your accomplishments need to be A, B, and C of this year. Keep that master tracking system to do it every year, build it into your budgets, build it into employee reviews, right? You do employee reviews, it's only fair to make clear the expectation to employees in doing that. And then ideally to, like I said, build that into your annual budget process, but you could even think in terms of what communities call capital improvement plans or CIPs, which is, all right, it's not just what are we going to do this year, but maybe there's something we can't afford to do it this year, but if we save a certain amount of money, we can identify in 5 years, we're going to be at the point where we can make this capital improvement. Maybe it's the parks improvement, whatever that might be. And then you go through this every year. You go through this process every year. So, I hope that you would get to a point where you can say, all right, this year we're going to scratch these off. We did them. Let's look at our next round. So this is a dynamic process. It's not a static process of do it one time and then look back on it in 5 years and see how we did. But it's something that's a rolling kind of annual process. Having said all that, when and if you get to the point where you have these actions in a state that you want them to be in and these goals in a state that you want them to be in, we will prepare a strategic plan document that is, I think it is helpful to have something that's almost like the executive summary kind of thing, the thing that you could carry with you that you could show people. One of the things I would hope you would get comfortable with is, when you're out working with your constituents and they're saying, well, what are y'all doing? What's your plan? You are able to say, we have it right here. We can tell you exactly what we're doing this year. Hopefully we can tell you what we accomplished last year. So I think there is something to be said for a hard copy, nice looking, well, formatted, graphically attractive document that would be part of this. But again, done in such a way that next year it's not a big deal to update it and you can keep it rolling.
Yeah, I was going to kind of tag in on that because I was given a copy of an example, one of these from Harrison Township of what it looks like. And you're welcome to come up and take a look at it. It looks very professional, really helpful in terms of understanding for the community to understand what the strategic plan looks like. Also, in terms of just to reiterate, not to get hung up on those bullet points right now on there. Okay, that what the administration and I am going to be asking of you guys is to be looking through there. If you see stuff that's missing, all right, make your short list of like 5, 10 items that we can begin discussing that. Ron and I have been talking about what's the best way to be kind of working over the wording on that and making sure that we're including bullet points that might not be there. A couple of the options that we've looked at that sound promising to me is perhaps putting together a small working committee on that would take one of these sections at a time. So like maybe it would be the village center section, all right? And that subcommittee would work on that and then bring the bullet points that they've come up with, that they've worked out to council and make their pitch on that. And council can say, well, what about this? Or, and work through it and go through it in that kind of a process. That would save us from meeting as a council an extra evening, or multiple evenings through the month. So that might be a helpful way of doing that. We're open to other ideas, but that's kind of where we're sitting at now is forming a subcommittee to work on this, that nothing's going to be finalized unless the council agrees to it. I mean, there will be a vote, I believe, on this. At least that's the way that Harrison Township did it. And for your assistance with this, in my trying to digest all this, when I first was looking through the document that you have right here, and I've had about a week to go through and look at those specific points. One of the things that I found helpful was to look at specifically other examples of bullet points from other communities in the bullet points that we have. And I put together a PDF that I can send out to each of you, and I'll do that. I just finished it today. I can send it out to each of you, and you can show it to whoever that you're kind of ruminating on this with. So what it does is it lists the the priorities. We have those. What are they? 7 priorities, 6 priorities. So it looks at what those are, and they're pretty isomorphic with what other communities have done. So like what Harrison Township has done. They have an image one as well, right? They have a one that deals with business, one that deals with people. So it's pretty isomorphic. So, but I do have those laid out so you can see how it's been done in other areas and how what our draft says on that. Same thing with the bullet points, all right? So you can look at bullet points of another community in that particular category and the bullet points that we have in our draft, and you can see for yourself, oh, wait a minute, these other communities doing this, does that make sense for us to include that in ours? I just found it easier to digest this whole thing by having that example, and I appreciate Dale giving that to us. So I have a document like that has the comparisons, and I'll send that out to you. I apologize for going on, but
I'm happy.
I'd like to suggest that that's a great idea. We should do exactly that way. I still think we need to address how we communicate with our residents first. Find that system so that subcommittee actually has a tool to use. Because I don't think the idea should just come from our,
Oh, I see.
and we
Yeah.
need to build that. That's the first
Get
priority.
the input on this from the residents.
Exactly. You gotta have a way, because when you hear people say you gotta know somebody who knows, and we've heard that for a long time, We've been trying to reach out and find ways to do it. But I think that's the top priority, to make those things even more effective.
Yeah.
The side result of that is, in 5 or 10 years, people feel like they were involved, instead of us just doing it ourselves and simplifying, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So I
absolutely.
just want to throw that out there as kind of maybe a first consideration.
I think that's great. And one of the things I would say is, it's going to sound kind of funny to hear me say this, but I would not agonize too much over getting these just perfect, because this is your candidate to-do list, right? These are the things that you would look at each year, and each year you might come up with something different that wasn't on there last year. So no one's suggesting that you're going to put all these on the strategic plan. You're going to do every one of these in the next couple of years, right? So I would rather err on the side of making it inclusive, and then through your annual process, each year you're picking, here are the ones that we think we can get done this year. I don't know if it's 2 or 5 or 6, but it's the ones that we think we can get done given our capacity as volunteers, capacity as departments. Again, keeping in mind
Opportunities, funding sources.
opportunity, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being opportunistic. It may be that, Ron says, hey, there's a new funding source out there that's perfect for this one. Let's put it on our list this year, right? And I think that the thing, and I'll finish with this and let you continue to talk about how you do this, but I think the thing to think about here is it's just about getting aligned. It's about alignment. I know I could probably go around this table and every one of you has an idea about what you should be doing this year, right? And that's always good that ideas come up. But one of the questions that you should try to discipline yourself to be is, I have an idea that I'm going to do this. Okay, how does that advance something how is that advancing our strategic plan? Because that's how you get continuity over time. That's how you avoid darting from here to here to here to here to here. All with good energy, all with good ideas, but if you don't have alignment between the things you're doing, every hour you spend on something, every dollar you spend on something, and how it aligns with this plan, I think that's the key to really making it work to me.
Thank you so much, Craig and Liz. And do you have more questions from anybody on this? Thank you so much for your work.
We will help you however we can.
One comment here. I think what the mayor and I need for council to do is, you guys are going to have to decide how we want to digest this information. So there's a lot here. There's a lot of one-sided point of view on this because it's more operational at this point. So this is a starting point, and there's a lot there. How do we digest that? Do we decide if out of those 7 categories, there's one that's more important than the others, that's where we're going to start? The thing is, you read through some of the suggestions, it's going to pop in your head that we're doing a lot of things that are there, especially when it comes to things that are in Liz's presentation, property maintenance kinds of stuff. In my report this evening, where I talk about some property maintenance stuff that we're dealing with. Those are all the things that we're just not starting on this. We've been doing this for 5 years now. Now it's time to start fine tuning our program. And that's where we need your input. The one thing that struck me too is out of the folks, Liz, that you interviewed, are there any of those people in your conversations that may be interested in helping us in this next phase of
I
this?
think they're very well, maybe, yeah. And I'll send the list again. I'll send the list to everybody.
Okay. And I thought of that because it's the problem is starting everybody from zero and gearing up and getting moving on this. We have some momentum with people that we've already had discussions with at this point. Let's try and re-engage those same people, much like we're doing with the park program.
I was going to bring that up as far as, so my list of additional things that include things we're already doing but aren't reflected here because it's things like community engagement. I believe there should be some long-term goals as far as community engagement that are measurable, all right, and that we can be held accountable for in terms of this body itself and even future departments or future employees that are focused on some of these pieces. But the work that we're doing, like getting going out and asking residents what it is that they would like to have from the parks. You know, these kind of things we're feeding my personal list of what I would like to see, you know, on here. And I want to encourage each of you to make your list. You know, don't make it crazy. I've already done that. All right. Don't make a real crazy long one. All right. I've done that for you. Keep it reasonable. All right. I'll change mine up to make it reasonable. All right. And feed it to the subcommittee. All right. And they'll figure out how to make that work. And again, this isn't something that can't ever change, right? I mean, we're going to be looking at it on an annual basis. And even if it is something that we've all affirmed together as a group on an annual basis, we can affirm this part needs tweaked, you know, whatever it is. But the part of alignment, I think, is you know, it's what we need, right? We need to be all on the same page, and we can come up with new ideas of, you know, how to accomplish those goals as we go. Having a document that's listing them and, you know, as a way of navigating, I think is fantastic. So again, thank you for your work with this, and look forward to working with you more.
We do your friend.
You're welcome to stay.
It's been a long day.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Minutes.
Yeah, we have to go back.
Is that on here?
Yeah.
Right before strategic plan discussion, we went from persons registered to address council.
I have to do it all over again.
Can you guys come back in and sit down?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's on me. So I apologize. As a point of order, we skipped over approving the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? And if so, are there any adjustments that need to be made to them? Either way, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
There's 2 sets.
And there's 2 sets of them. We have from September 28th and the council meeting, as well as the public hearing that occurred on the 28th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as they currently stand?
Motion to approve?
Both?
Both.
Is there a motion to approve both? A second,
Second.
rather. All those in favor of approving both as they stand?
Aye.
Thank you.
Signature.
Both of these. I'm not listed here. I'm not listed in that one. This is,
Yeah, you can
Go ahead, let's have that.
Sorry, everybody.
Did I mess that up?
As the vice mayor listed, but not the mayor.
Really? Well, because of the previous meeting, okay, I'm sorry. Because he presided over the meeting. Is that the one we're letting down?
It's good. We're all good. All right. So I'll keep my report brief here. A couple of things going on. First that I'll mention last month about the tree grant. That money did come in. The specifications of how we can use it are listed in my grant request. All right. So basically I said, this is how we're going to use it. These are the specifications. I will be getting that to the administration as soon as I have a minute to get those documents over to them. As far as planting trees, I understand that depending on the tree, there's optimal times for when is a good time to be planting those. And I've heard that fall is good for some trees, but so anyway, we need to look at that is in terms of whether we've already missed that window with some of the freezes going on and whether that, so we'll need to look at that as part of all this. So we're not destroying our investment as we're planting it in the ground. So it's $5,500. And my understanding is that we'll be getting close to this amount each year for like the next 3 or 4 years for trees specifically. And I have some things specified out in terms of how to use that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is what you guys think about having Metro bus services are implementing a new system that's called, what is it called? The Bus Rapid Transit. All right. I don't know how many of you have heard of this, but it's a different style of bus that has larger doors that you can get in, and it's kind of modeled off what a train looks like a subway where more people can get on, and it's moving fast, and it's more frequently visiting. And they're looking at a number of corridors to do this in. They're looking for public feedback on it. Looking at Reading Road, all right, so having fast buses that are coming in that can more people can very quickly get in and off of, as well as on Montgomery Road. So we're kind of situated right in between the benefits of those two. They're asking for public comment on it, and what I've asked is for them to come to council and field our questions about it. All right. When I initially asked them about this, then we ended up canceling a council meeting. So I need to give them some dates to see which ones they're available for. So I'm going to be asking administration about that, but I wanted to ask you guys if, what you're thinking would be a good, is it next council meeting? Is it the council meeting after that? It should be as soon as possible. They had public hearings on this, which were the 17th, 18th, and the 19th of this month. All right. So we've already missed that opportunity of going and to those public hearings, but they are willing to come to us as well. So
Are they looking for communities that are interested in having the route come through, or are they?
They're interested. A lot of this, I was discussing this with someone else just today. There's different ways in which organizations get feedback. Sometimes it's just a matter of saying, this is what we're doing, and just wanted to let you know, and that's how they get feedback. All right. And some organizations are really asking and have room for tweaking something a little bit. I'm not sure which this is. I think it's more about wanting to get the message out about what they're proposing, and that they are going to be testing this, and they'll have their own measures of whether this is working as far as getting people downtown, as far as stopping some of the congestion. And I think another of the priorities is just making the transit system more reliable. You'll hear stories about folks that are like, well, it's hard for me to rely on it for work because it's not always arriving when it says it's going to arrive. And there's apps for tracking where the buses are at different times and everything. This is one of their major initiatives. They're putting a lot of money into upgrading the buses themselves and the routes to create these rapid routes. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to ask questions about any questions that we have about it. If there's, most of our residents I know use so there's routes that go, east-west for you, and all these rapid routes, my understanding is just go north-south. All right. We're in the middle, so it looks like they would be taking a bus from here to either Montgomery or Reading. And then the good news would be is even if that one isn't on time, there's very frequent ones then occurring on Reading and on Montgomery. But these are things that we can talk through. And if you have constituents that use the bus, you can invite them in to ask their questions about it as well. So with their testing of this beginning very soon, I'd like to get them in here very soon to be able to talk to them about it. And we can designate, give them, 20 minutes or something, including our conversation or more.
So I can tell you, so the 14th, there's nothing that I know of offhand. The 28th, we will be doing appropriations for 2023 that evening, but that is more of a legislative piece. And on the 12th of December, Hamilton County Reuse, the recycling folks are doing a presentation to us about legislation that they would like us to pass in support of the countywide recycling effort. And that's their first pass at that. So I would say the 14th or the 28th of November would be good dates just from the legislative calendar.
I have their website pulled up about this rapid transit study, and it looks like most of the upcoming forums they have last about an hour and a half at different communities. So I don't know if that's more what they're looking for.
No, I think they are willing to do what we asked them
Okay.
to do on this. I've got a copy of the emails that I've had back
Okay.
and forth with them. I have this, I'll read this. So what the rapid transit thing is frequent service every 10 to 15 minutes. So that's going to be on Reading and on Montgomery. Station stops more widely spaced than traditional bus routes. So basically it's getting you down faster because it's not stopping as many times. All right. Attractive, clean, comfortable stations and buses with Wi-Fi and charging ports, real-time bus arrival, display signs, fully accessible stations, same level entry into buses.
Train service.
Use of smart traffic signals and dedicated bus lanes. I don't know how they're going to do that down Montgomery here. There's just not a lot of room for dedicated. So that might be a question. Are you talking about what happens once you get into Pleasant Ridge?
Right.
Bigger buses with more room, boarding and exiting through any door, paying advance fares.
Get them on there.
Yeah. So we're saying the 14th? Is that-
Or the 28th.
Or the 28th? What do you guys think? 14th?
That's fine.
Yeah? All right. I will let them know that. The next thing that I had on here, wanted to cover a couple things about it being, it's Federal Domestic Violence Awareness Month. All right. And typically I'd like to read something for about 15 minutes, but I'm not going to do that to you. I'm just going to go through some of the facts on this. So the purpose of Domestic Awareness Month is that awareness of both the frequency of this, awareness about this problem helps destigmatize the victimization of it somewhat. All right. It is very prevalent, and I'll read some statistics about that. And it also helps people become aware of what resources are available. So 1 in 5 women are raped in their lifetime. All right. It's fairly significant. 1 in 4 women experience physical abuse by an intimate partner in their families. Women are murdered by a male intimate partner with a gun every 16 hours. Domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking disproportionately impact women and members of underserved communities. What the statistics also show is that it really doesn't matter about your race, your gender, your religion, your economic status, or your age, you're going to find that this occurs in every one of those brackets. All right. So in terms of local resources, there are shelters, of course, and there are shelters that basically are secret shelters, right? Like you don't know what the address of them are. They're not publicly put out there, so that if you're a victim of domestic violence and you need to get out, you can have a safe place that isn't like, hey, this is where all the domestic violence people are hanging out, where you can go and find them if you got a beef with them. No. So these resources are set up to be very protective of not just individuals, but their families, because a lot of times when you're fleeing something like this, you're fleeing with your whole family. So I'm going to bring up the YMCA's hotline for these shelters with representatives that are available 24/7. Calling that number it's 513-872-9259. I'll ask the administration to do a little blurb on this, being that it's the National Domestic Violence Month. And through that hotline, you can make connections with crisis intervention, case management, shelter, basic needs for survivors and their children who are victims of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and or human trafficking. There's an age limit for male family members. Children of can't be over 18 years old if your children are coming with you. If you need any more information about that, I've got a whole article that I've written on it. All right, that talks about that. So finally, I wanted to bring up that my appreciation of Bryant Bussey's stepping in for myself. I got invited to a meeting with some of the members of the Cincinnati Board of Education. They are looking at goals of how to evaluate the new superintendent. So I was part of a process early in the year, getting input from the community to bring to the Cincinnati Board of Education what we thought would be the good characteristics or the priorities that should be used in choosing a superintendent. All right. So as a part of that process, they had a consultant that came in and helped us go through that process. This is now on the other side of that, where we have a superintendent and they're looking at how to evaluate that superintendent. And so looking at what are the goals of CPS that we want to hold the superintendent to. So fairly significant meeting, if not one where if it happened to be one of those where a lot of feedback was necessarily a lot of back and forth. It was more of these, this is what we're looking at. What do you, this is my understanding from what Brian reported. I do have a list of what those that he was able to bring to me of what their draft goals are and draft kind of guardrails. So differences in the goals, like goals to just kind of that are maintaining the route of positive progress with Cincinnati Public Schools. All right. And then goals that involve maybe taking it to the next level, making it better. So what happened is I had sick kids and I was home, and this committee sent out invitations a couple of days before they were meeting. All right, so I was like, all right, well, I'll be there, but then I had sick kids and had no way of doing anything about it. I reached out to our vice mayor. She also was unable to do it on such short notice. Reached out to our present chair of community engagement. She also was unable to do it. This is all happening the day of the meeting, and Bryant was able to step up and take care of it. So very thankful and wanted to publicly acknowledge that that he represented Gulf Manor there and was able to bring this information back to us. So thank you. And I believe that is all that I had. So I will turn it over to the administration for the report.
Okay, in summary for our road projects right now, we have a conference call scheduled with Greater Cincinnati Waterworks on Wednesday this week to have our discussion about our funding issue. And hopefully that will lead to a rebid of the Elbrook project. We walked Weehee last week. to look at the curb lines. And that project is going to go out to bid in November, as well as Canterbury Englewood. And then Hamel Engineering, as we've reported in the past, is scheduled for this winter. Economic development, we did complete the acquisition of 2200 Lasanaville, so we now own a bakery. The building has been secured. We have covered it with liability and property insurance just to ensure if something crazy there happens until we have a final decision with what we're doing with the building. So that's all been taken care of. Mr. Donald this evening is going to advise on the status of the other acquisition we're looking at in his section of tonight's meeting. Property maintenance, we have kicked up the enforcement of the Stover cul-de-sac. That area continues to deteriorate exponentially. The amount of garbage that has been accumulated behind the buildings, Chief Campbell will tell you, is just incredibly ridiculous. And the only way that we have found to curb it is to restrict access to that area. So we have put up barricades on the condemned portions of the property, and we have just recently erected a 6-foot fence. And we'd like to thank Mills Fence for helping us with that. But once we get the garbage curb, that we know there's nothing new coming there, we'll do a blitz to get it cleaned up. We'll attach that cost to the properties there if necessary. And hopefully we'll get some, we're talking about the Stover cul-de-sac, hopefully we'll get some resolution on some of the buildings there that we're trying to deal with. On leaf collection, that officially starts next week. And let's see, let me find my page here real quick. So on the website, we have a new feature called Leaf Tracker. This is an offshoot of our experiment with doing Road Tracker last year. So the maintenance guys are going to be installing signage at the front and the back end of each street that looks like this. So if your leaves are next week, these will pop up over the weekend or on Friday to give people notice that if you want your leaves cleaned up, they need to be out by 7 a.m. Monday morning. Now, on the master slider on the website, and let's see here, why did that not come up? This did not update for some reason. We are listing the actual streets that are being done. So the week number 1, Monday, October 31st through Friday, November 4th, the streets that they're concentrating on will be Lasanaville, Cedarbrook, Vera, Fair Oaks, and Kellerman. At the completion of the day, they are going to text back to me what they completed. We're going to list that on the website. And once they're completed, we'll put the date. This will be archived. So when people say, well, I've never come down my street to do leaves, we'll have that information so people can go back and see when they've been there. Also, we'll have the posting for the next week listed. So hopefully this will improve communication and we'll get the word out there that if it's your street for your leaves, raking them on Thursday does not mean that your leaves are going to get picked up. If you want them picked up, they need to be out there by Monday because they start at 8 o'clock Monday morning picking up leaves.
Ron designed this. This is beautiful.
That looks good.
And I'm thinking this is such a great idea as far as, knowing that it's your street's turn to get your stuff done, everything. It's just, thank you. It's great. Thanks to the.
And you'll notice there
Putting this together.
are 8x6 banners that went up today in all of our banner spots. So it's an investment in hopefully trying to make this process work a little bit better this year. Let's see, where am I? Other thing I want to make you aware of is if you go to our website, you'll see that we have listed some surplus auction items. Just letting you know that the truck sold last week We got a $9,000 price for that, which was good. One more piece of equipment out of here. And then for the council designees, there were 3 people that I need to complete this. Everybody has the ability to affirm or to change their designees if you wish to this evening. So just make sure I get that form this evening by the time you leave.
Did you,
And
you
that's it.
passed it around?
He's already has.
Yeah. All right, great.
I
Thank
think
you.
Sharon's is sitting there.
Let's see. Chief Campbell, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Fiscal Officer, Mr. Pridnoff, do you have a report?
I do. So I did read the whole thing on finance, so I will try and make it brief. Sorry. And then close it. Apologies. Okay. So for the month of September fiscal year 22, the village had a combined bank balance of $3.7 million approximately. Of this amount, about 3.6 can be found in the village's primary checking account, while the balance resides in several village dedicated funds. The village did have 24 outstanding payments totaling just north of $9,000. For the month, the village generated $73,000 in income tax receipts. Again, when comparing to last year, September, we're about 5,000 less for the month, but for the year, we're about 2.4% ahead. So still pretty strong compared to last year. The village did already receive our second biannual disbursement of real estate taxes, so no change there. Otherwise, in terms of receipts, the village received 30 payments in September, just over $200,000. Of that amount, 148 approximately thousand was accounted for in the general fund, which is more than September of 21 by almost $14,000. Top 5 payees for the month were payroll, Deer Park, Silverton, Ohio Police and Fire, Grumpy, and OPERS. As for appropriations, total village general fund spend for the month included 80 cleared payments of just over $350,000. That's about $163,000 more than last year, same month, which obvious, right? What's going on there? Why are we spending so much more? There were 3 payroll cycles in the month. There was a delay in the August payment for the Jefferson Health Plan. So for health insurance for village employees, there were 2 payments this month, making them a much higher payee. C-75 expenses, obviously, in September were significant, and consultation fees for JMA for the Weehee Road project, as well as monthly Deer Park Silverton costs, which did not exist in September 21. So all those things combined are a lot more. But again, the biggest piece there was having 3 payroll cycles. Village administration will continue to monitor appropriation spend and make any adjustments deemed necessary.
Fantastic, thank you. Mr. Hurst, would you like to speak to issue 7 at all?
Oh, sure. So on the website, we've posted, so if somebody's asking you about it, we've said what we can say about it. There was a failure to notify the Board of Elections that Gulf Manor is not in the fire district. So on a Saturday morning, when I was looking at the ballot, I saw issue 7 there staring at me right across from issue 23. And Mr. Donellan contacted the Board of Elections. We tried to get it remedied. Unfortunately, by state statute, we were past the time that changes could be made in the ballots. So they very graciously provided the statement that basically says that the Hamilton County Board of Elections was notified that the village of Gulf Manor is no longer part of the Little Miami Joint Fire District. Therefore, the Little Miami Joint Fire District issue 7 should not have appeared on the ballot of Gulf Manor. We asked them to also include any votes cast by Gulf Manor voters for or against issue 7 will not be counted. This will not impact your vote on Gulf Manor renewal levy issue 23. So hopefully that will be clear for folks. I know that's been posted on Go Golf Manor, it's on our website. That's the story. I've had 2 inquiries where people have seen it on the ballot and have questioned it, so.
So will there be like a flyer or something to accompany these people?
There was in my absentee ballot, there was a strip of paper that had that statement on it. So supposedly, when you go to the polls, that statement is posted at each polling place, and that'll be posted here.
Will people get that as a part of their ballot packet?
No, it'll be hanging
It'll be in the
in the
desk where you
machines.
vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you explained, Terry, right?
Yeah, it's in the desk where you'll vote. They also are putting in every desk where you vote at the Board of Elections, not just Golf Manor, because you can go to any one of the desks and vote. They've covered every one of the desks.
That's what they told me.
And when they showed a picture of early voting opening last week, they showed one of the desks. Our notice was on the desk. And they mailed them to overseas to those who had already requested ballots.
Oh.
They had email addresses, so they sent them there. I mean, they've covered everything to try and correct this mistake.
We were pretty adamant about fixing it, so.
Sounds good.
So,
Mom
yeah,
said this was our parting gift from Ellen.
Yeah, and part of it is that the statute says we notify the auditor. If the auditor approves it, the auditor did approve it. There's nothing that says, and you also shall tell the Board of Elections. Don't know whether the auditor doesn't talk to the Board of Elections, Board of Elections doesn't notice it. When I talked to them, I said, didn't you kind of wonder when you had on our ballot in May that we were voting for a fire levy? That we couldn't have a fire levy in May if we were still part of the district, and you didn't call us out on it? They said, well, I said, I'll grant that nobody ever gets out of a district, so something new to you. And I said, I will also bet in your lifetime, nobody will ever get back in or out of another district. So, hopefully will not impact us whatsoever.
so I know that the initial concern was that it can look like we're asking for quite a bit of more money, right? And that could affect the renewal that we're wanting people to vote for. So hopefully this is sufficient to let everybody know. We just want the issue 24, not the issue 7. Right. Okay, Chief Campbell.
Okay, I have some stuff from the past meeting. I'll start with the mayor's court report for the month of September. Total to the village was $2,281. To the state was $516.50. To other, $19.50, for a total of $2,825. That's the end of the report for month of September mayor's court.
Thank you, Chief. I neglected to ask for, right, do we have a motion to accept the monthly mayor's report?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
No objection, I'll take that as unanimous. I got a little bit distracted here because we forgot to do the same with the fiscal officer's report. Do I have a motion to accept the fiscal officer's report?
Make a motion.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous.
Sorry, who was the motion by?
Which one? The
The
first one
mayor's
was us two. Second one was,
I missed 2 motions.
So that was for
yeah, because
the
you two were chatting.
mayor's court report was the first motion?
Yes.
Is that right? And that was who?
Me and then Lou.
Jeannie and Marks. And then the second one was to accept the financial report.
Guys, you guys are all out of order. You're supposed to do financial report first. But the motion to accept financial was by who?
Snyder.
And who was the second also? Thank you.
Okay, sorry for the interruption, Chief Campbell. Proceed with the rest of your report.
Some other items I have for you. We met Officer Hammerman. We're happy to have him. We're still looking at filling another position. That's going well, and I'll keep you guys updated. Hopefully we swear him in soon as well. I have an activity report for the month of September. Some of the training that the members of the PD received in September was a FBI Command College Executive Leadership Series. A member, Sergeant Reed and I went to Washington, D.C. to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and did a class there. Got a lot of resources that are going to help us here. We sent people to advanced search techniques for hidden compartments in vehicles, homemade explosives, recognizing them and responding to them. And then there was a canine training conference. The canine, between the officer being on light duty and the canine having a couple of tweaks, we've not deployed them. We're trying to bring them both along slowly. So there's not been any activity with the canine, but we have recovered another stolen vehicle with the flock cameras. And one person was in another one as well. Those continue to help us find people that shouldn't be in our community. I also provided you guys with the calls for service by categories. Total for the month was 267. The numbers have been a little bit lower lately because we've had fewer officers available between staffing and injuries and vacations. But we anticipate those numbers returning where they were. And then I also shared a report from mayors for the citations that were issued. If there's any questions on those, I'll take those. Otherwise, I'll save everybody time.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Donlon, Solicitor's Report.
Thank you. We have three pieces of legislation tonight. First is the second reading of ordinance number 2022-9, an ordinance establishing regulations for temporary storage containers, dumpsters, and portable toilets in residential districts. I need a motion, a second, and then I'll get into the discussion in the background.
Motion. Second.
All those in,
At the last meeting, we presented this for the first reading, which was the text approved by the Planning Commission since it's an amendment to the zoning code. It's my understanding there was some discussion about amending it relative to pods, temporary storage containers, being placed into the street. And in the memo, which I sent out accompanying the legislation, I kind of gave some background. Mr. Butler, who was here at the last meeting, wasn't at the Planning Commission meeting, and I think also Executive Committee meeting when this was reviewed and discussed. We had quite a bit of a discussion about placing these in the street and a big concern about first damaging the street. And then secondly, because parking is such a premium, is not wanting to have these located in the street or start to say, here's when you can put it in the street. And then, of course, some of these, with the streets being very narrow at dark, could be a traffic hazard. When we talked about this at Planning Commission, because the concern was, well, you can get a variance. I'll put that out there. You can request a variance. The variance process is to apply for a variance. We then notify the surrounding property owners, and there's a hearing before Planning Commission. Planning Commission can approve it, and Planning Commission can put the terms and conditions upon it. And we thought if that comes up, that's the Planning Commission could say, okay, we need this to be put on boards. We need this to be parked here. We need it removed by this date. We need you to put reflectors on it. And we could say we want a security bond in case the street is damaged. And we went through a long discussion of that with Planning Commission. And the reason Planning Commission said we want this as a prohibition completely is we didn't want to start codifying exceptions because then everybody will have an exception. Part of the discussion at the end was, what about an emergency? There's tornado damage, house fire. And we talked about, well, the village administrator has permission or authority under Chapter 902, street and sidewalk opening permits, where we deal with utility companies. And when a utility company says, we want to come and tear open your street, we get the details from them. We can require a bond. We can make sure they clean up, make sure they fix it. And the thought was, that may be where the exception occurs, is an application to the village administrator for a street permit for a particular period of time. When I read the language that was drafted, and that was in a red line version sent to you, it's almost identical to the same standard we would have for variance. Only instead of it being a variance going to the Planning Commission notifying the neighborhood, this language that you would propose would in effect be a variance under the sole authority of the village administrator. There's some value in notifying neighbors. this is gonna be parked in front of this person's house, and it's gonna be there for 30 days. What do you think? So, my thought is, if we kept the ordinance the same, which says pods are not permitted in the street, dumpsters are not permitted in the street, and portable toilets are not permitted in the street. And if we were concerned about there being unusual circumstances where emergency action needs to be taken, then let's add a section into 902 relative to street permits, where under those unusual circumstances, the application can be made, I need a street permit, and go to the village administrator. We would not be using it for, it's inconvenient for me to put it in my yard, it's inconvenient for me to put it in my driveway. It would truly be an emergency or urgent situation where it needs to be there, and it would go through that process rather than going to the planning commission, which could be 30 days. It could be 30 days. Granted, it's not easy, but the concern we debated back and forth the planning commission was when we start to build in, here's the rules, but here's where they won't apply. Everybody's going to say, I can't do this. I need an exception. I need you to approve this for me. And it puts a bad burden on the village administrator unless it's an emergency. Tornado, fire. Hey, we know you have to put it there. Let's put it there for a limited period of time. And I would even advocate for a limited period of time that it not be the 30 days. If someone has a fire, the insurance company's coming out and the rehab company's coming out, let them come in and say, I'm going to come in on this day and I'll be out on that time. 2 weeks, you can go in there and do it. But on the day-to-day, when someone says, I want to do this, go back to the rules. Back to the rules of a 30-day.
Mr. Fisher?
Right, so we did what we discussed last week when you weren't here, the problems with this was like this, when we have a person moving into the community, right? So when he wants to come in, he lives in a place where either his driveway is too much of an angle or he doesn't have a driveway where you can put the pod down. So number one, we look through the ways these pods get delivered. They're not dumpsters, they're pods, they don't damage the street. They pick them straight from the drop down street and have these cool, each company has a different type of a driving system where it does not damage anything underneath it. Now, we were discussing that if someone moves into the community, he's new here, he's moving in. Oh, you can't come, you can't move in for 30 days until you go get an ordinance to allow you to unpack your stuff for moving into the community. It's not fair to the people. What we need to have is a way that they could just go to the administrator, let's say only give them a week. They could get a week. The administrator has the power to give a week for these people that are moving in. You guys have a week to be able to get your stuff in. Welcome to the community with a big smile instead of, no, you have a whole month and a half until you'll be able to unpack your stuff. That was what we brought up on the last council. I felt it was very important to add into this ordinance that we could have a way out for those people that are moving in, not in case of emergency, in case of they want to do construction, all that stuff, we have to go through the planning commission. It's just for those people moving in. We should welcome them with a smile rather than tell them, no, you have a month and a half, you can't move in until we get permission for you to put it down on the street. That was what I think is very important, and I hope if everybody could agree with me to add into the ordinance.
And that's where I said, if we want to go down that path, I would advocate for you amending as a companion to this, chapter 902, which is work in the street. And work in the street on a 902, they could come to the village administrator, say, I'm moving in on Thursday. I would like to be able to park this in the street. My moving company is going to be there Thursday through the following Thursday. And just like when a utility comes in, he can say, what kind of dumpster are you going to use? Does it need to have boards underneath it? Where are you going to place it? Okay, fine. And he could give the permit under the street permit. I would advocate too in updating that section. We update the section for when someone wants to close the street for a party. We don't have anything right now to regulate that. But to your point of not knowing what the rules are, you wouldn't know what the rules are relative to getting a permit from the village administrator, either under this code or 902. You wouldn't know till you're already here, till your pods are right there. That was a long, long debate because we were very concerned about street damage.
And that's what I'm saying, these pods don't make street damage. Say it's something else. If it takes up too much room or sticking out into the road, that is a problem with, could be a problem with pods because they're all 8 feet wide. But with damaging the road pods, the moving pods do not damage roads. They don't come sliding off like the dumpsters. that scrape against, they need to go pick up straight and drop down straight. You go look, research it.
Well, I apologize. I don't write the rules
Right.
except what you tell me to write.
Right, it would be these guys, I gotta go research it.
Well, couldn't we, along with the permit, for the street permit, part of that would be, okay, you want it here, when, whatever. All we ask is that you put plywood down under the legs of it. That would be part of the process, so yeah, you could put it in the street.
You can do that.
Yeah.
And
So
we
you-
make that part of it.
And that's what I said, if you go into 902, which utility comes in and says, we need to dig a trench. They come in to dig a trench. Ron goes through the process with them of saying, where are you gonna dig? How are you gonna dig? How long are you gonna be there? And if there's a traffic issue, what are you gonna do to managing traffic? And what it does for us under 902 is someone comes in, doesn't know the rules, parks a pod, we can come down and say, you're not allowed to do that, but you can file this application very quickly. We can look at the pod and say, let's put something underneath it, or it's a modern pod that is not gonna damage the street. We're okay with that. Keep it here in front of your house. Is it only gonna be here for a week? Is it gonna be here and gone and then another one come in? You can find out all the information. I would agree with you, it's a long process to go through planning commission. But if someone wants to plan in advance, that, hey, I'm gonna remodel my house, I need a pod, I need a dumpster, I need a toilet, and I can't follow those rules, the neighbors ought to know.
Agreed.
So that's what I'm saying, if you're gonna do it, and I would applaud you for doing it. And I'm sorry, we didn't have the data points that you had when we talked about this at planning commission or executive committee.
So doing this through 902 makes sense in a couple of instances where we've had pods that people have dropped, which were bad spots for driving. I can think of the one that was at Canterbury and Hamel and the one that was at the corner of Vera.
Yeah.
So if we have the ability to give some input in terms of where it's actually sitting, the problem is people will come in, drop these things and not tell anybody. And then we're stuck with it for X number of days until they decide to move it.
And we could write into this code, you can't, and say, but for those that must be placed in the street, a street permit can be applied through the Office of the Village Administrator under section 902. It also gives the
That
chief,
was my whole request.
the chief gets the opportunity to say, wait a minute, if you put it there, it's a line of sight issue, or it's a turning issue. How wide is it? You gotta push it so it's right up against the curb. You can't angle it so nobody gets hit. But we'd rather have that, and we went through this with planning commission, we'd rather have this no, and then put a line in there if required under chapter 920. And then we write in specifically under 902, what would be considered, what the application would be, and let people come around that way.
That makes
And
sense.
why can't we just add it in over here?
I'll do whatever y'all want.
No, I'm saying, open up another ordinance, to switch, just add it here. I don't know what the difference is of just putting a line in here, whatever 902 said. Right here, or opening up 902 and adding it.
I would advocate opening up 902 and adding it, because 902 deals with sidewalks, streets, permits, security, degradation of the street, everything. And it fits more conveniently in there to say, this is when you can be in the street. And again, in updating 902, I would also advocate for adding in there, a street permit to close the street can be made to the village administrator. So when someone says, we want to close off this block and have a block party, they come, he knows, he can look at the safety with the chief and say, that works. But 902 deals with when you're going to be in the street, working in the street, and potentially damaging the streets or sidewalks.
When I've worked on researching a particular topic with regard to, well, what does the village ordinances say about this? And you go and you use the search thing. Oftentimes what will happen is you'll have paragraphs from all over the place, that are, and it gets difficult to digest that because you got to go and read the context in which each of those paragraphs came up. So I understand the reasoning of having it kept in the, in a particular context of whatever it was, 902.
So as a point of reference, it might be important to include C section 902.
Right.
That's what I said. I would put in here, they're not permitted in the street. And maybe a phrase that says, except as authorized under chapter 902. And in 902, go into the detail about a permit being required, security potentially being required, looking at the street degradation, and him having the ability to say, we're limiting it to this time. Because if we're going to limit it to a 2-week period of time instead of 30 days, then it gets confusing with this that says you can have a dumpster for 30 days, you can have pods for 30 days. So if someone says, I really want to have it for 30 days, then you really need to find a way of putting it in your driveway or in your yard.
Sounds good. That sounds a good way to do it.
I have a reservation, even with that included concerning the dumpsters. And what my reservation is with the consultants bringing up the importance of supporting residents when they're doing renovations and things, all right? An example here, you get a building permit, all right? You're gonna be doing a significant renovation on a house, all right? But the way contracting is, you're often getting them when they're available, and you often don't have much of a heads up of when they're gonna be there. I mean, you can be sitting on, getting a renovation done for a very long time based upon the availability of certain contractors, all right? Someone's available to come in, and you're gonna need to have a dumpster, but now you gotta wait 30 days for the process. If there's no room on your property, it's gonna have to be on the street. Is that what we're saying, is you have to wait 30 days to have it go through the planning
There's no
commission?
30-day wait.
How long does it take to go through the planning commission?
Didn't we eliminate that?
Yeah, we allowed that to go through.
For these report cards. One of the things that is very important to give more points is a point system that they use. And points, the school gets points for every child that takes that yearly test. If you don't take it, it hurts your scores. And then another thing she brought up, because I asked her, I said, I looked at Deer Park and Millwood's report cards, and they are better than ours. And she said that is because we're overcrowded, one of the issues. And when you take the point system and you compare everything together, when you have more kids, you usually have a different ratio. So, and then she, as an example, she said PRM has 3 6th grade classes. 2 of those 6th grade classes are doing extremely well. The other one's not. So that takes the system down, the report card down on that. So it's all in the way the Ohio rates their system as to how we turn out. So the one plan that the principal makes from every school is based on the report card scores. So she is putting together her one plan now. But I also want you to know that there was no report card done last year because of COVID. But on the one plan that she did, PRM scored and met everything that was on it. So of course we didn't have a report card last year, so we don't know what those scores would have been. So it was really interesting to hear her talk about that.
Ms. Jane, do they do this annually? Is that?
Report card?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and
When
then,
is, I'm sorry, when is the next one then? If, so this report card was 2022? Is that what this
No.
card was? Or it was 2020?
actually it's 2019 and 20.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Yeah,
So
so
when is
there
the
was
next,
none last year.
when is the next one? Do you, if we can report on that maybe next time. Because
Okay.
I'm curious
I'm
about,
not, yeah, Mid-
there's
First school year.
yeah.
yeah. Okay, and then, okay, I told you that. And then, we created, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. Okay, because we're overcrowded, the district has given us 2 more teachers, which sounds great, but we don't have any classrooms to put these teachers in. So these 2 teachers are helping other teachers, co-teaching. So that's where that stands. And there's no word on when the new addition's gonna take place yet either.
Can they use pods?
They don't have any place hardly to put them on that property.
Trailers.
long as you put it
Trailers
back.
are the
As long as you
answer.
put the wind down,
That's
so
what school sells the
Uh-huh.
trailers.
Okay, and then we created a subcommittee. We're gonna be reviewing, okay, let me back up. The school board has an ad hoc committee, and I think I might have mentioned that. The ad hoc committee is looking at how we can redraw borders so we can get some of the overcrowding down. Okay, so our subcommittee is going to look at not drawing them for PRM. We think that the best thing for PRM is to keep it as a neighborhood school. Okay, so what we would like for the school board to do is when a child signs up, parent signs a child up for school, we would like for the parent to be given options. You know, as do you want to go to your neighborhood school, which is a Montessori school, or do you want to go to Woodford, Silverton, or JP Parker? Those schools are not overcrowded. Those schools are not Montessori. When you have a child coming in from another school district that has never been in a Montessori environment, they don't do well. It takes them a while, they struggle. So we would like for options to be given for parents, just to help that child. Okay, so we want to look at all that, so I can report back to you where we're gonna end up with that too. And we'll be presenting that to the school board.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, and then tomorrow's the ad hoc meeting, I'm gonna go to that, 4:00.
Both men are still a pretty heavy percentage of the students in that school.
They haven't given me a breakdown, I've asked for that before.
'Cause I know in
We
the
had
past,
188 at one time, that was 2018, I think.
Out of 500 or something.
Yeah, the school holds 550, we have 730 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good old CPS.
And it just keeps growing. Okay, and that's all.
All right, thank you for your report, Ms. Cheney. Thank you for your service to the community engagement as chair. And thank you for your willingness to move over and chair the finance committee
Thank you,
on behalf of the residents of Gulf Manor. Thank you.
thank you.
And let's see, is there a nonprofit report as a part of community engagement? No. And let's see, any other communication stuff? Finance committee report. I mentioned that I have moved Ms. Cheney to chair of finance and have appointed Mr. Marks as a member of the finance committee. Was there a meeting tonight or no? There was. Do we have anyone that can report on that meeting?
I can.
Okay.
All right, let me find my notes here. As usual, the fiscal officer covered the majority of what took place in the meeting. However, we did discuss that the STAR funds were successfully moved over $500,000. That happened today. I also asked about ARPA funding and how much roughly we had to work with, and also when we had to use it by. The administration can get us a more detailed report on that later because some money is earmarked for certain projects to begin soon. Let's see, and then we went over our revenue review. Is that as specific as I should get? Okay, on a program that the village has been participating in for a while, and it is doing well. End of my report. No, I'm not supposed to.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Van Harn for joining us this evening. At your discretion, may I speak to some of the circumstances that made it so challenging? So Mr. Van Harn was involved in a pretty severe accident, breaking his legs. And that was only like 2 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks.
Sunday.
All right, yeah. So with surgeries in the meantime, and he's here with us tonight doing his public service anyway. And so want to thank you very much for your commitment to council and to the residents.
He just wanted to get out of the
You would
house.
stay here tonight?
Maybe help getting back in the house.
Greg Schwartzberg sent a message that he really appreciates council and administration's flowers and note that they sent, and he really takes it to heart. They just want to give everybody a personal appreciation. So he's going to try to come tonight to thank you. If he doesn't show up by the end of the meeting, I should give up the message.
All right,
You should.
thank you. And
Yay.
of course, and former Mayor Schwartzberg, big contributor to this community in many ways, especially at his service. Yeah, of course. So we thank him as well. And I don't have anything else on the agenda. If there's nothing else.
I'm sorry, I have one final question. When are the bathrooms being winterized in the park?
I have no clue.
Okay, I wasn't sure because during the meeting that we had, the bathrooms were locked, so I had to escort some children across the
Right.
street.
So vandalism is a thing still.
Right. I just wasn't sure if we should expect them to be locked permanently until,
Well,
because they've been
Once,
winterized.
I would imagine that they'll be done quickly because it's starting to hit freezing temperatures at night.
Right,
So they'll need to be shut down before the porcelain gets broken.
okay.
So,
Yeah, and I was going to bring up this topic separately, but it's been more than one occasion where I have, both occasions where I've been there with my family, but then also occasions where I've just been passing through and have seen numerous people there that don't have access to the bathrooms. And so that's like during, on weekends, in the morning, through the evening, having to track down assistance from the GMPD to help us get in to those facilities. So I think we need to.
so there's no one here on the weekend from service department who would open the bathroom, so it's the police department would need to do that. And my understanding is that that's happening.
Okay.
So,
There's been a couple incidents where the officers on duty thought it best to keep it closed for a little bit to deter people that were causing damage to return day after day.
Right.
So I know like the day of the meeting, the
Yeah.
park had been locked that day because something had happened
Okay.
just prior.
No, we had a birthday party that had, I don't know, 10 kids at it, maybe 15. And then there was a number of other families that were there that we then just, come on over to our party and everything. So we had quite a group over there, but the bathrooms were locked up while we were there. So that was, if anybody else in the village is having that experience, I'm just concerned about both the inconvenience of that when you got a bunch of kids and it's not even known that, how to get into this building on the weekend, which is typically locked up as well. So anyway, take that into consideration as far as how you want to respond to the community about that. And that's all. Thank you for your question.
Sorry, it just
Yeah.
popped into my mind.
I have
Anything else?
one last thing, nice cost benefit analysis from the finance committee. Can this be shared with the other council members?
not really.
Okay. So the council-
They can
council-
see it, but we shouldn't
Right.
discuss that here.
So announcements are, as we had mentioned before, the next executive committee meeting is November 14th at 6 p.m. Our next council meeting is immediately following that, 7 p.m. And our next finance committee meeting is on the 28th of November at 6 p.m. With council, full council meeting either immediately upon its conclusion at 7 p.m. And if there are no other announcements, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Hold on, before,
One little thing, this has been an amazing, big experience, and there's a lot of things I will have to give, I just can't do it tonight, of people in our community that have been supporting my family and different things. I just put that out there now, but I'll do a better job.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're joined. Thank you, everyone, for your service.
Danny, there's 3 copies here. I don't think we can
Hey,
just hand
Roger.
this to people
Do you
without
Will
an
that thank you
explanation.
include cookies?
So they
Well, that's
probably
okay.
have to touch base
Will
with.
it include
Do you want
cookies?
my copy
I just want to
back?
make sure.
Are they not supposed to
Front.
read the room?
Oh, thank you.
Thanks some cookies.
I'm doing post on
Any
Facebook.
designation forms
Good,
that you need to give me?
good, I did.
Oh, you did it?
We already have one.
There was only 3 that were missing.
You have to turn it over.
No.
All right, so long, everybody.
Okay.